Hello again. Okay, another quick thing to mention. Sometimes I make these short little videos in between on the playlist because there aren't any videos with that information. So this is one of those times. So the word Coptic means Egyptian. Okay, it's another name for Egyptian. So the Christians in Egypt are called the Coptic Christians, which is like saying the Egyptian Christians, okay? And then there's, of course, the Christians that we're studying now of Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, okay? Ethiopian Coptic Church, it's called sometimes when you read things, okay? So the reason it was the Ethiopian Coptic Church is because the Coptic Church in Alexandria in Egypt was kind of like the headquarters, like the head honcho up there would pick the head honcho, the big bishop, the Abuna, the bishop in Ethiopia. So just before Haile Selassie was coronated in 1930, back when he was regent and plenipotentiary with Queen Zauditu, so he was the regent, something significant happened. So I'm looking in Jah's autobiography, in the end of chapter 27, it says, "It is wonderful that at this time God in his charity wrought two great works of good fortune for the Ethiopian church. One, the appointment of men chosen from among Ethiopia's own savants to the office of bishop, something that had never happened in some 1,600 years from the time of Ethiopia accepted Christianity in the 4th century up to the present. Then the second one, the journey to Addis Ababa of the Patriarch Abuna Yohannes, his celebrating Mass in the Ethiopian Church and his blessing of the people, while at the same time appointing the etage of Dabra Labanos to the dignity of a bishop." Okay, so the point here is that was a big change. From the time they were Christian until just before Selassie was made emperor, the head honcho of these Christians that were studying in Ethiopia was selected by the head honchos of the Coptic Christians in Egypt, okay? So I have this video on here, and she does a great job. She does a great job going into all types of details about what the word Coptic means and this relationship, okay, that existed between the Coptic Christians and the Ethiopian Christians, okay? She doesn't really mention this part that I just mentioned now, so that's why I'm reading it. Another thing that none of the videos are really saying is, so I have some videos about that the Blue Nile is the big lake where the water comes from, that flows down through the Blue Nile, becomes the Nile, and into the Mediterranean, making life possible. So the Horn of Africa, can you picture it? It does look like a horn. That's Ethiopia, okay, and in there's the Blue Nile goes from the high mountains of Ethiopia and runs down through the next country north of Ethiopia called the Sudan, and then into Egypt, in the south of Egypt, and all the way through, and then depositing into the Mediterranean, okay? So there was a time in history that all of that land, Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt, was all called Mizraim. Mizraim, Mizraim. The name Mizraim, so that information's out there and it's gone over. Nobody's saying what the word Mizraim means. The name Mizraim means the two red mudded lands, the two redded mud hill lands. Yeah, the two redded mud hill lands, meaning Upper and Lower Egypt. Meaning Upper Egypt, which is actually Ethiopia, and Lower Egypt, which is Egypt, okay? So that used to all be one place. And then, like, we know of those of us that have studied archaeology, that there was a time when all the continents were one continent, okay? that one continent from a biblical perspective is Ethiopia. Okay? And so that's why the Garden of Eden's in Ethiopia, because all the land was called Ethiopia. Okay? And then, you know, some translations call Ethiopia Cush in Genesis chapter 2. But that's just like, it's just, you know, there's up and downsides to each individual. There's up and downsides to each people too. The downside of white people is they just won't give black people the credit they deserve, and in Africa and Ethiopia the credit they deserve, you know. Cush is a stupid translation. I have a video on here about the Cushite Empire, okay? And who Cush was, son of Ham and all that. Okay? Cush and Cushite is more specific. Ethiopia is less specific. Okay, it was Ethiopia, and it was a big, huge area, Djibouti, and just, you know, all the Italian Somaliland, and just that whole area was all Ethiopia. It was all Mizraim. Okay, so that's why there's all these connections, and all these videos that I have on here. Everybody's studying these connections, and the Nile, and how there's this history of the Ethiopians wanting to threatening to dam up the Nile, which makes the Egyptians mad, and blah blah blah. That's because these things are ancient, and everybody has something to do with everybody. You know, it's not, you know, everybody knows about everybody, and it's everybody's history in that whole area. You know, it's not just like one area, it's all the areas. Okay? And that changed for the first time. And another thing Haile Selassie did was he had the Bible translated into Amharic, you know. From Ge'ez is an older language that's like Amharic, you know. But so in Haile Selassie's day, which isn't that long ago in the bigger picture, those major changes were made, okay? And so today when we study the Ethiopian Christians, we take for granted, in a take for granted kind of a way, we don't recognize that, you know? But the relationship between Egypt and Ethiopia is much older than there not being one, and Ethiopia appearing all independent like that. Okay, it's because it all was one area at one point. And even if you look at the documentary by Graham Hancock, when he studies in even better detail, because the Keber Nagast says angels carried the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia, but you know how legends are. Really, it did. There is a path that it's probably one of the best things Graham Hancock accomplishes in that, besides giving proper attention to Ethiopia. And that's the trail that it went. It went through Egypt and spent some time in Egypt, the Ark of the Covenant, and then ended up in Ethiopia. You know, these type of things are never mentioned. People aren't mentioning them, you know, but it's part of the story. So right now in this part of the playlist, we're studying the Nubians and the Cushites and Aksum and the Ethiopians and that. So just understand, you know, and these are different names, especially like when in this playlist, in this video I have about the biblical black people, notice the Canaanites, who are the sons of Ham, are just like, there's people that are kind of unidentified as a people but have a name in the Bible, but are just kind of rolled in together with the Canaanites. See? So that's just kind of the behavior in this part of the world. There's lots of people, everything's very ancient, and their names change for the same people, and they mix and go back and forth and interbreed and blah 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 blah, you know. And it's always relevant that Shem makes babies with Ham, which I go over that especially with Judah, and that's why it's the largest kingdom in the kingdom of the south, you know. So this is the nature of the history in this area.